versuche ein bisschen Deutsch, ein bisschen Englisch. Hoffentlich ist es okay mit euch. Ich war 9 Jahre alt, wenn ich raus von Deutschland gegangen bin. Also mein Deutsch ist wie ein kleines Kind. Vielleicht ein bisschen worse. So how many people were at the show yesterday? Okay, just so you get a sense of if I'm playing for new people today. So I've been getting a lot of questions these past couple of days on not only the guitar, but some of the effects that I'm using as well, especially with some of these overtones, octave sort of frequencies that I'm getting with the guitar. And I want to play a song that's actually not my own piece of music. And I'm the first to admit that I am the worst person to play other people's music. I'm not very good at it. But this one song always captivated me, and I thought it's time to play an arrangement of someone else's music. And I'm sure all of you have heard of this song before, because it's the #1 hit single from the year 1779. It's a long time ago, I know. And if you feel like singing along with me, please don't. You will ruin it for me. Thank you. All right, so hopefully you all recognize the piece. It was the amazing, amazing, amazing Grace. And when I first stumbled upon this piece, you know, a lot of people think of this song as a religious song, but I don't really see it as that. I see it as a very beautiful melodic piece. And it's such a simple melody, that is really timeless. And when I try to approach this piece, you might be wondering why I had all these sorts of shimmer effects with this reverb that I'm using here today. And it's interesting because we think of this typically as a gospel song. And so I try to really capture that with kind of sustaining the notes out as you're playing everything. And I just want to mention, if you guys have any questions at all during this little workshop, just raise your hand and I'll be more than happy to answer anything that you might have. A little bit about this pedal here as I'm playing, and it's really allowing me to have the freedom. So whenever I choose a chord, I can very quickly be able to hold it. So say I'm holding this A chord here, it's A shape. And now if I stop the guitar, all you're hearing is this sort of kind of organ-like sound, right? So this allows me to improvise or to do anything I want over that. And the great thing is, as I'm switching the chord, you know, it's as easy as taking the bass note of that and sustaining that. So you let go of the foot, and then you really push it as you're holding that next chord. For example, so you see now you've got that next chord ringing, and it allows you to do other things with that. So that's really a really great approach. And when you're playing and writing music, I stressed this yesterday at the workshop as well, that for me to play music or to practice, a very important part of that is for me to play plugged in, to hear everything. I wouldn't have been able to discover that if, one, I didn't have a guitar that sounded good, and thankfully I got this guitar, which is a Cole Clark. It's got 3 different pickup systems, so it's picking up all the frequencies very evenly, very rounded. And to have a pedal like this, which I'm using, which is a reverb pedal with a sustained shimmer, it allows me to have that freedom to really be able to explore myself, you know, especially through other people's music, which, as I mentioned, I'm not that great at, but I really try to capture that with a piece like this, with getting all these sorts of delays, you know, especially when you have this sort of ping-pong effect, like, you can probably hear that there's a delay that's being ping-ponged here a little bit. And this really is nice. It really creates a 3-dimensional sound. So when you're practicing at home and doing these sorts of exercises, it's so important because you're able to hear everything a little bit more, you know, a little bit more clear. So any questions on that? Or the effects that I was using? Maybe I'll go over this little thing that I'm using here, which is an Ebow. Maybe you've heard of this thing before? Yeah, some of you, yes, some of you know. And what this basically is, it creates an electromagnetic field around the string. It basically gets rid of the attack of the note. So the attack, typically, you can hear a very high attack and then a short decay. This is quite interesting because with this, it almost feels like you're playing a violin. And for me, I played violin for 5 years before playing the guitar. So this is the closest thing that I could do to remember what playing the violin is like. It's as easy as holding it on the string. So now you really have a violin at your disposal. And if you team this up, of course, with sort of the sustain from the reverb, now it allows you to have that freedom to really play. And this only works on steel strings. It doesn't work on nylon strings on a classical guitar, so that's something to know as well. So I feel like the more of these things that you have at your disposal when you're being creative, especially as a solo guitar player, it's so important to remember that these things can be an aid for you to better express yourself, right? So that's the Ebow, the reverb, and the guitar in a nutshell. So any questions on this? Anything so far? Yes?
I would like to know what your pickup system is.
So the question is, what is the pickup system that I'm using here today? So this pickup system with the Cole Clark, what makes them a little bit different from other guitar companies, and the reason why I play them to begin with, is that it has 3 pickup systems. A lot of the acoustic guitars these days might have one, which is typically the piezo pickup. Now let me just demonstrate for you what the piezo alone sounds like. So, a little bit bright, a little bit, a little harsh. Some might say it's probably good for a strumming case, but when you're being a fingerstyle artist, it's very important to get all their frequencies nice and balanced. So, the way this pickup system works, the piezo is designed to only take the lower frequencies, pretty much around 300 hertz and below. Okay, now I'm going to take that knob and turn it into the the face brace, which is this pickup right here, which is like a transducer. So you can probably hear that coming out through the system right now. I'm going to turn it up all the way so you can really hear it. So it's a very active guitar. Typically, I have it in the middle, between the piezo pickup, the bridge, and the face brace. Now, the microphone right now is not engaged. This is the third pickup, the microphone. The microphone is such an important tool for getting a real good acoustic sound. And when you're playing acoustic guitar, many of you who play acoustic guitar plugged in know that if there isn't some sort of mic feature in the acoustic guitar, you're going to lose a lot of the high end, the real natural raw sound of the acoustic guitar. So that was by far one of the most important things for me to have in playing the solo acoustic guitar music. So now, this is with the bridge and the face in the middle with no microphone, just so you can get a feel. Now with the microphone, I typically have this up at 90%. The way the microphone works, I think just above 1.25K and above. So only the high frequencies, because typically when we're thinking about microphones inside acoustic guitars, there's feedback. Many of you guitar players here know you've got a feedback buster in here to prevent it from going into the feedback zone. Now, typically the feedback buster can be good, but the feedback buster is also killing your tone. It's killing the vibration of the top of the guitar. So you might think about that and say, well, maybe you don't want that. You want to get the really clear, pure tone. And now with the microphone engaged here with this knob at 90%, now I've got the same thing. So forth. So you're really getting this nice rounded sound. Of course, this is not the be-all, end-all kind of way of doing this sort of arrangement. This is just what I found to be very, very good. And it's such a versatile pickup system that really allows you to play in any sort of band setting, whether you're playing with other people or whether you're playing solo. It doesn't matter. And right now, we're going through a PA system, and as you can see, there's no feedback at all. Even for those that were there yesterday, the loudness was pretty loud yesterday. And no feedback, right? So this is really the ideal guitar for a player like myself, to have a guitar that can replicate all the sounds that you have in your mind and to be able to let it out through the guitar. In fact, it's a great practice tool as well. Now, when you're thinking about practicing acoustically versus plugged in, when you're playing acoustically, you might find that you make maybe some mistakes that really aren't so clear. Playing with a pickup system inside a PA or with an amp allows you to listen more, right? And that's the key. To be a good guitar player, to be good at anything, you have to be able to really be aware of what's happening with your craft. And in this case, this guitar is so active, you can even hear this sound. You hear every single part of the guitar. So if I'm doing some sort of thing like a percussive thing, like a 6/8. So it allows me to just have this freedom to think of every single part of the guitar and to play it and to get an even sound. A lot of guitar players might use other pickup systems, external pickup systems, and you might know that sometimes the percussion isn't as loud. You'll find that the percussion might be a little bit lower or the strings are a little bit higher. It's all about the balance, because when you're playing a live show, it's so important for a player like me to plug in and play. For those of you that were here for the sound check, you know it lasted about 1 minute to 2 minutes, max. And that's what you want. You want to get on stage, you want to plug in and you want to play. You don't want to tweak everything. You don't want to get into that zone of just worrying about everything. You can, but honestly, it's just, your energy will be saved. You'll enjoy playing a little bit more, right? So for me, this is really a great, great tool to have this guitar and to play and practice through a pickup system and through the PA. Hopefully that answers your question. I probably went a little bit too deep, but any other questions? Great, so I'll play another song. So I'm going to play a song here about this idea of practicing a little bit. And there's a funny story because I lived in Texas for 7 years, Texas. And all the stereotypes that you think are true about Texas are true. Guns, cowboy hats, barbecue, great big fat burgers, and you name it. I was a part of it. And that's actually where I really learned to speak English, American English. And, you know, people always ask me, how come you don't have a Texan accent? Where's that? Well, the more I drink, the more it comes out. And being here in Germany, my favorite beer in the world is Weissbier, so can't go wrong. And with this story here, I was about 13 or 14 years old in my friend's backyard. And basically in Texas, we were pretty bad. And let me explain, because we used to go into his backyard and make sure his parents were not there. So just me and my friends. We're 14 years old. We used to get as many sharp objects as possible. Anything that would stick into something. Okay? We used to take them into the backyard and lay them out and choose which weapon we're going to use to throw at his tree. It's good practice, right? At least we didn't use guns, right? That's the way I'm thinking about it. We used crossbows, though. That was fun. So we got these sharp things, and my friend Eric starts throwing them at things and doing pretty well. So I decided to pick up the $1,000 axe that his dad owns. And I pick it up. It's pretty heavy. I'm 14. I'm not that strong. So just as I'm about to throw it, in my peripheral vision, I see his dad, Mr. Garrison. And just as I'm about to throw it, I see him, and I quickly pretend to do the garden work with his axe. And you know, you've seen those Western movies where everything is in slow motion. You remember that? Well, he was over there. It took him 10 minutes to get over here. And finally, when he came to me, he took the axe, he looked at me. He was a silent type, didn't say much. Takes the axe, looks at me, looks at my friend Eric, and he hits a bullseye right in that tree. It was the scariest thing ever. And right there and then, I said to myself, I'm going to say something really smart to him, to Mr. Garrison. I said, practice makes perfect. And he looks at me with his squinty eyes. He says, what? Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Wow. My mind exploded there. I said, wow, perfect practice makes perfect. You know, a lot of us guitar players, we expect results quickly. When we play something, we expect to be good immediately. But we forget that we have to practice. Perfect practice makes perfect. So when I applied this to the guitar, I said, wow, that's so smart. You know, and I decided to play everything slower. You know, wow, what's the rush? When you play everything slower, you hear more mistakes. And when you hear more mistakes, you fix more mistakes. Right? And then you can bring it up to speed. So this was a very important lesson for me. I mean, I can't stress how much Mr. Garrison helped me in my life, not only with throwing axes properly, but also perfect practice makes perfect. And I was in Australia about 4 years ago or so on tour, and I had heard of him passing. He left us. And I was very affected by this. He really was like a second father to me. And this song immediately just came out in honor of Mr. Garrison. And the name of this piece here is called Running Fox Trail. And that's the name of the street where we used to throw sharp things. Thank you very much. It's dedicated to Mr. Garris. So, speaking of the song, the composition here, some of you might notice that my capo is on the 3rd fret, but not touching all of the strings. So this is also known as a partial capo, but this is just a regular G7 capo. I'm only touching strings 2 to 6, leaving the first one untouched. Okay, this is interesting because you might be able to do things behind the capo, as you may have seen at some of the parts there I was playing. Behind, then back and front. So this is a great tool to have. I mean, if you're not interested in going into the alternate tuning world, this might be a good option for you. And the great thing about this is, I mean, you might ask, like, how do you come up with that? How do you get to that point where you can maybe have something ready for a composition or to even just noodle around with? Well, it just came from experimenting, to be honest. And the tuning that I came up with, this one is E flat, G, D, G, B flat, E flat. But the capo is here, so it makes this kind of like an E flat tuning in a way. And I mean, you can do this and put it on any fret. And what I would do is I would just experiment. For example, here now on the 4th fret, I'm going to see how this sounds, and you're going to see a big difference. It could work with enough time. Not that we have enough time right now for me to write a song, but just to give you an idea. And then me going to the 1st fret, for example, now creates this sort of like E flat major 7 tuning. All right, if I did have that on all 6 strings, it would sound like this. That one note can make a big difference, especially if you're playing solo acoustic guitar. That one note can be a ringing note, the melodic note. So you might have known that for some of these songs, the open notes are very important to have the melody be sustained for almost as long as possible. Open B, right? That allows me to move to a different position. And so forth. So this is just an interesting thing. If you are interested in kind of dabbling with these capos, there are loads of other partial capos that you could use. I don't really use them. I just tend to use a regular G7 capo and then just have it touching only strings 2 to 6. So any questions on anything so far? Wonderful. You guys are really good. You guys know all the stuff already, right? All right, so maybe I'll play another piece here. How much time do I have left, by the way? The phone rings. That's a good sign.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh my God. Oh, did you have a question?
Yeah. I was wondering, are you playing with your fingernails or just with your fingers?
Oh, I never thought this question would be asked.
Sorry.
No, I'm just teasing. I mean, the thing is, when you go to, like, especially acoustic guitar meetings, we talk a lot about our nails. It's quite funny. And so I use a thumb pick on my thumb. Some people use a fingernail. I just find this feels a little bit more comfortable for me. It took a few years, to be honest, to really be comfortable with this, because I was really into metal and punk and like wanting to use a pick a lot, so I thought, how can I incorporate that into the right hand? Now, the fingers, I've got my pinky, ring, second, my middle finger, and index finger, they all have nails. So I've got longer nails, you can probably see them. And it's acrylic gel. So I have to embarrass myself, I have to go to the salon. Not only am I a guy going into the salon where you get your nails done, but I only ask for 4 nails. So it's twice the confusion. And it's funny, as soon as I walk into these salons, everyone's talking, these grandmothers, oh, my grandson did this, and all of a sudden I walk in looking like I do. And people are scared, they're like, it's silent. Not one word, everyone's looking at me. Then I have to explain, I'm a guitar player, you know, in case they don't know what a guitar player is. I do this motion and I say, I'm just getting 4 nails done. Don't worry, I'm not a threat to you. Keep talking. So yeah, it's a matter of just gels. This is pretty thick. The reason I have this, you might be wondering, well, why don't you just use your natural, you know, your flesh? What's the advantage of the fingernail? Well, the fingernails create a little bit more presence in the note. If I'm playing this, it sounds a little bit nicer in my opinion. Plus, there are certain techniques which I use. There's a flamenco technique called the rasgueados. Maybe some of you might have known this technique. With this nail, having them, I'm able to get this flurry of notes very quickly and to get an even sound if I'm doing that. So right? So with this sort of thing, if I didn't have the nails, I wouldn't be able to do the rasgueados technique. And I was really into flamenco at one point, but I just like to take ideas from all genres and fuse them together into world finger style, which is what I call that now. So that's just basically my nails in a nutshell. It's a lot of maintenance. I mean, typing, being on smartphones can be a little bit annoying, but it's a good weapon. You can really poke people's eyes out if you really need to. Yeah. So I think that's it for me for today. Thank you so much for coming. I will be at the Coulthard booth there on the left if you exit. I also have some CDs there and some USB sticks with all of my music if you're interested. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, I'm right here again. Love to talk to you guys. Thank you so much.